Hello. So let's talk about Mike Brown for a little while. Well, really, let's talk about Darren Wilson and the races, because that's really what we're going to talk about. So, the first off, I'm sure everybody has seen the Darren Wilson video, the little 15-second clip that the guy recorded of him arresting him for videotaping him. And I guess there's some backstory to that he was called to check on some pit bulls or something. I don't know. But the point of it is Darren Wilson clearly violated that guy's rights 3 times in 15 seconds. So either Darren Wilson doesn't know basic civil rights, or he chooses to ignore those basic civil rights as a police officer because he works in an environment at the police department in Ferguson with the police chief and other officers that also share his views, that believe that citizens don't have civil rights, especially black citizens. So it's either he doesn't know civil rights or he knows that he can get away with violating them because he knows that nobody in his police department will do anything about it. And that's the one I'm leaning towards, because remember, he was also on the police force that was disbanded for all their racial tensions in some city over in Missouri a while back. So anybody who wants to say, well, he wasn't fired for that job, the whole place was disbanded, blah blah blah. So are you going to tell me that he was the only, or he was the good seed in the whole bushel of bad apples? No. If he was working there that long, show me his file where he put in complaints that these things were going on and that they were troubling him. And if I don't see those records of him being so troubled about what was going on in whatever town that was with all that racial tension to where they were disbanded, then he was a part of the problem. And now when we add this new video where we actually see him violating someone's civil rights, and we know that he comes from a department that was disbanded for that exact reason, it leaves a lot of credence towards him also violating Mike Brown's civil rights that day, because history tends to repeat itself. And when you already have 2 strikes against you back here, the third one seems a little more easy to believe. And then when you move on to the fact that Anonymous has taken over the KKK Twitter account, and one of the people on there has said that they have uncovered ties with Wilson to the KKK. So if that ends up being true, if I don't care if he just tweeted them, anything other than die KKK, if he tweeted them anything in in a good manner in any way like that, if there's any direct messages on there, that seals it. That right there would be enough for me, and I would hope that would be enough for anybody else. So if that ends up being true, when you add that to all the things that we know about Darren Wilson's history, about him working for the police department, violating that guy's civil rights, shooting Mike Brown, that should be enough to convince people. But of course, you have the people that are the KKK, the racist tree people. Those people will find any and every excuse that they can for Darren Wilson or anybody else like them, Zimmerman, like that, because, to them, it doesn't matter why he killed a black person. It's just the fact that he did. And in their mind, all black people are thugs, and to quote them, apes and monkeys and chimps and all that kind of bullshit. In their mind, when they see a black person, that is what they see. They don't see human life. They don't see value in that human life. All they see is somebody who is going to kill them, and they need to be killed first. Doesn't matter what the reason is. Doesn't matter if that black person just happened to breathe the same air of them. If they find it offensive, they think that it's okay to shoot them, and they will defend anybody and everybody, that does it. And now, the KKK is alive and well, and we are finding that out on, social media right now, that all of these people that are being exposed, with their private pictures with their fucking hoods on and shit, with their kids at these fucking rallies. On the Darren Wilson support page on Facebook, there's pictures from one of his rallies, and if you notice all these pictures, there's only 10 or 20 people at these fucking rallies. It's not like hundreds or, thousands. It's 10 or 20 people, and it's the same 10 or 20 people all the time. But in this 10 or 20 people, when you take out the 2 token black people that they have showing up, that, don't even get me started on them. But if you take them out, we're down to like 18 people now. 6 of them are kids, so we're down to 12. And of those 12, like 4 or 5 of them have been positively identified as KKK people. So we're talking, half of the support that's coming for this man is visibly is coming from KKK people. If that's not enough to get normal people who aren't racist, who just happen to, for whatever reason, believe Darren Wilson, was innocent or whatever, that aren't really racist, if that isn't enough for them to jump ship, I don't know what is. But this KKK shit is getting out of hand, threatening to shoot the protesters and, all this stuff, and then it's just coming out of the woodwork. I mean, it is very interesting to see, because, in the 1950s, they wore the hoods, so people didn't know who they were. Because even then, they were fucking scared. But back then, they uncovered their faces a whole lot more than they do now. Now, on the internet, they can hide behind the fucking internet. And I wouldn't be surprised what the actual percentage of racist and or KKK people are in this country. It's really fucking staggering. And the internet's just giving them a voice. Before, they were there, I guess. They were always there. But they, kept to themselves in their little fucking pods in the woods, burning their crosses and shit. But they didn't dare come out of the woodwork before the internet. Now the internet's just letting them fucking come out like roaches, and they just think that, they fucking rule the world, and they think that everybody thinks like them, and they think that, they can call you, names enough, and that'll, make you switch to their side or something. But it's just ridiculous, and it's scary. And thank goodness that they're finally being exposed, because that's the only way that we're going to get rid of this, is, is when people are exposed. If that's what you want to be it. But don't hide behind the fucking internet. Come out and let the world see who you are, and let the world react to you. Don't hide behind some little fucking picture of Stewie from Family Guy thinking you're all that. When in reality, you're just a fucking no-good loser racist who, if you were to say that shit in the street, you'd get your ass beat by plenty of white people or Asian people or Mexican people. Doesn't matter what the race, you're going to get your ass beat for thinking shit like that in the street. But on the internet, you're safe. Whatever. So, and then, moving on, there's also the video that we saw from the police department of Darren Wilson walking out 2 hours after the shooting while Mike Brown's still laying dead in the street. Walking out, no injuries, at least nothing visible, and people say, well, remember Zimmerman, he didn't have no visible injuries. You know why that was, too? Because the motherfucker had 2 little scratches on the back of his head and a little fucking cut on his nose. That the swelling had all gone down. So, of course, that ain't gonna show on a fucking videotape that's all grainy and shit. Just like Darren Wilson, we see him walking out to the hospital, and he waited 2 hours to go to the ER. But yet, the argument has been, first it was he had a broken fucking eye socket. And then he was just beat the fuck up to a bloody pulp, but his eye socket wasn't broken. And now we see him walking just casually. I mean, if I had been beaten to the point where I had to be taken to the hospital, when you're hit, your hands go to where the pain is. I don't care if the pain is in your fucking dick. Your hand goes to where the pain is. You're going to visibly be winching and, because you're in fucking pain. You're not just going to be casually walking out to the fucking hospital and, with your buddies around you. And who knows if they even went to the hospital. We don't fucking know. And who knows what happened on the way to the hospital. Did they take any pictures of him at the scene? That's what I want to see. And then when they're coming back, they're laughing and giggling and they got coffee. It looks like they stopped somewhere. I mean, it's just a big fucking joke to them. So, but, just like Zimmerman, he was so fucking beat up and he was so scared for his life that he had to shoot somebody. But yet he waits to go to the hospital until, it's required by somebody else. I'm sure somebody said, oh, you need to go to the hospital so we can make it appear like you were hurt. Zimmerman didn't go to the hospital until his job fucking told him to go to the hospital. He never would have went to the hospital if his job wouldn't have told him to. It wasn't because he was beat the fuck up. It was because he needed some paperwork. That's all. Same thing with Darren Wilson. That motherfucker wasn't beat up. So anyways, moving on. Now they've called in the National Guard before there's any unrest. So that tells me that either they already know the decision. That's the only thing. They already know the decision. They know that he's not going to be charged, and they know what that's going to mean for their city, as it very well should be, because there are now, there's all the eyewitnesses that seen it. There's a forensic. Dr. Bonds testified. Cyril Weck has come out and explained, the autopsy about and how the hands could have been up. We know how many shots were fired. It is very possible he was running and Darren Wilson was shooting at him, but didn't hit him. And even there is the one wound that very well could have come from the back, but yet he still hasn't been charged. And now they're calling in the National Guard before anything has even happened. Why are they doing that? And they've been there now for 2 or 3 days. and they're not expecting the announcement at the earliest until Friday, and then they said they're giving a 48-hour warning, so it won't be released until Monday or Sunday. So why'd they call the National Guard in so early? A lot of this just makes me wonder, I wonder if there really is a grand jury. I wonder if anybody, and it would not surprise me in the least little bit if that prosecutor's office, had 12 people from his office sitting on what appeared to be a grand jury in the room, but none of it meant anything. Just for the appearance of the witnesses so they could say, yeah, I testified in front of... It would not surprise me if the grand jury is completely fake and just, the whole 9 yards. Because none of this is making any sense. There was a story published last night from a TV station in St. Louis where somebody had requested all of the emails sent regarding the Mike Brown shooting from the day of the shooting until 5 weeks later. He was from a Freedom of Information request. He was told back that it was going to cost him, I think, $1,200 for the request. So, okay, he paid the $1,200 evidently. Then what he got back was 7 emails. The Ferguson Police Department is claiming there was only 7 emails sent in regards to the Mike Brown, Darren Wilson shooting in the 5 weeks after the shooting. 7. Bullshit. Where's the rest of them? And the point of that is, the police chief made the decision that he was only going to pay the labor for the guy to do the search for 5 hours. So the guy had requested everything for 5 weeks, but the police chief decided that the guy could only work for 5 hours because that's all that he was going to pay him out of that $1,200. Or whatever, wherever he got the money from. But the point is, he didn't do a complete search. He was never given the opportunity. But the Ferguson Police Department wants us to believe there were only 7 emails that were sent. So that is bullshit, and we all know it. In this day and age, with the police department of like 50 on-the-ground officers, and who knows how many, that don't actually patrol, but, work the jails and the booking and, that kind of other bullshit. How many they have. So we're expected to believe that of all those people, 7 emails were sent? Come on. I mean, come the fuck on. And these, the people that are supporting Darren Wilson are like, yep, sounds about right to me. Yeah, that should be about right. I mean, they will question everything about the Mike Brown side, down to the tattoos on the mother and the father, and why he doesn't have a headstone, and all of that is all good fodder for why they were bad parents and their son need to be fucking murdered. But they won't question anything about the other side, about where's the emails? Where is it? If we don't have nothing to hide, just give us. Just give us what we're asking for, because it is a part of our public record. But when you go trying to pass off 7 emails as everything that's been sent in 5 weeks, that just screams cover-up. And I've been saying that since the very first beginning of this. This is nothing but a cover-up. You don't write an incident report. Then you come out the day you release his name, with the video, and the audio has also come out from during the incident from the police radios. If you listen to those audios, he doesn't ever say shots fired, call for backup, nothing like that. And if you listen to the one from the dispatch about the actual robbery, it's called a stealing. So the police chief is the one who decided to use the buzzwords strong arm robbery, when even the dispatch was using the word stealing, which would equal to shoplifting. So the police chief, when he came out that day and gave Darren Wilson's name, he decided to amp it up, one level, and put the blame on Mike Brown and try to take it away from Darren Wilson, because Mike Brown was strong arm robbing somebody, when in fact, at the very most, he was only shoplifting. And the store owner didn't even call the cops. It was a customer who called. And when they called, the dispatch didn't deem it as a strong arm robbery. They deemed it as a stealing. So what was the motivation of the police chief to come out and, get this buzzword of strong arm robbery going around? I'll tell you what, and you all know what. It was to divide, to make it look like the thug had it fucking coming, and the white saint officer who had recently received an accommodation for busting up a marijuana drug bust in a driveway that he couldn't even be bothered to show up for court and was given an accommodation for, it was to protect him. and to make the black guy look like the thug who deserved to fucking die over a cigar. That's what it's made to look like. If that would have been me, he would have come out and said, oh, he was shoplifting some cigars and we had to gun him down. But when it's a black person, he was strong arm robbing somebody. You know, that's the difference. And that's the difference between the racism of 1950, when a white person, it was, well, not socially acceptable, but I mean, well, I guess it was socially acceptable to the white people. But you could walk, you know, down the street, and if you saw a black person, you could call them a nigger. You know, you could say that. But in 2014, you know, as much as a lot of people may agree with you in their head, you know, if you say that kind of shit on the street, there's going to be people like me who aren't going to let you get away with it. You know, we're going to come out and we're going to say something to you, and if there's a lot of people, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. But, you know, in 2014, since they can't call you a nigger right to your face, except from the, you know, anonymous basement of their mom on the internet, what they do is they call you thug and accuse you of things like strong arm robbery and, you know, the such like that. When it's a white person, on the other hand, and we've all seen it with the shootings in Colorado in the theater, there's all the examples of where the white person does the same exact thing that a black person does. And when the media reports on it, they report on, oh, he was a good kid, he just made a mistake, you know, he had great parents, blah, blah, blah. But when it's a black kid, you know, he was a thug, he, you know, was strong arm rob. You know, it's those buzzwords that the racists use in replace of the word nigger. When you see the word thug in the context of these people, you know, making comments about Mike Brown and he deserved to die and shit like that, just replace it for the word nigger, because that's what they mean. And that's what's really fucking sad about this, is racism has just morphed into something new with the internet and with the anonymity and with the buzzwords that they use. Because now, you know, certain words are taboo, you know, like nigger. I'm sure some people watching this like, oh my God, he's saying, yeah, I am saying it. I would never say it to a black person in a derogatory way, but when I'm in this context, I will say it. Because that's exactly what's happening, and it's fucking disgusting. Unless people start calling these people out and posting their pictures on fucking the internet, then it's gonna just fucking continue. And, you know, these people just keep reproducing this fucking hate and reproducing it. And, you know, somewhere it's got to stop. And now is as good a time as any to, you know, make it stop. And a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but a good way to make it stop is the internet does not need to be anonymous. We all need to have an internet registered user ID. Nobody needs to be able to post anonymously on here. There's too much cyber stalking. There's too many pedophiles. There's too much cyber bullying. All this motherfucking bullshit. And we could have it simply sorted out with everybody being issued a number similar to our social security number to log on to the internet. And people can get on me. That's not American, blah, blah, blah. Fuck that shit. There is shit that, you know, shit that goes on the internet that if it took place in the real world would be criminal. But it's not criminal on the internet because you're anonymous. That's not right. You know, and this shit shouldn't go on. And, you know, you couldn't walk down the street and call somebody a nigger and not be, you know, and be anonymous because you're there. You know, so you shouldn't be allowed to do it on the internet either. There should be consequences for those hateful actions if that's who you're going to be. If you want to be that, be it, by all means. But let the world know who you are and quit hiding behind shit. That's my point. So let's see, what else? So, like I said earlier, the anonymous people, one of them's doing anonymous cop watch, and he said that he's found links from Darren Wilson to the KKK. So, if you look at the Darren Wilson Facebook support page from their rallies, all 20 people, you know, there's a few of those that have been identified, confirmed as KKK. So, there was a guy who had made a YouTube video 4 days after Mike Brown was shot that called out one of these people by name and said that he needed to be looked into. And lo and behold, 3 months later, we're finding out, yep, this guy is sparking a lot of it. So, you know, it's just crazy that the KKK has come into this so hugely in 2014. And the fact that, you know, this police department very well may be tied to the fucking KKK. That's crazy. That's like Boss Hogg fucking shit in the Dukes of Hazzard or something. Some in Heat of the Night bullshit. I don't know. So, that is basically it. But like I have said from the beginning, this is nothing but a cover-up. They didn't file an incident report. They come out and try to slander the victim. We haven't seen any pictures of Darren Wilson. They take it to a secret grand jury from a prosecutor whose father was killed by a black man, who happened to, whose father also happened to be a cop, who the rest of his family, a lot of them are cops. This has just been a joke from the beginning. Now they're calling in the National Guard, but they don't even have a decision yet, supposedly. So it's just fixing to get ugly, and, it's really gotten sad that, again, we've come to this. The point is, this isn't about Mike Brown at this point. It really is about race. There is a big race divide in this country, and somewhere it has to stop. And in my personal opinion, where it needs to stop is everybody in the country needs the same opportunity. The reason why black people are so upset is because they don't have the opportunity we have, and they have been oppressed for many, many, many decades and centuries, and that shit gets passed on. When your mother and grandmother and great-grandmother and fathers had no opportunities, and they had no chance to move up socially or economically, they can't pass down anything to you to move up socially or economically. And we fund our schools by property taxes. When you live in a neighborhood where every house in the neighborhood costs $1 million and every house pays, $10,000, $20,000 a year in property taxes that goes to the school, compared to when you live in a neighborhood that the property, most houses value, say, $50,000 to $100,000, and each house pays $1,000 to $1,500 a year for property taxes. That is a big fucking difference, and that's how we're funding our schools. Why is it fair that the same American children who all have, the same rights and should have the same opportunity to education, why is it fair that they're not getting the education because they happen to live in a different neighborhood? And the sad truth of that is most of those neighborhoods happen to be black. And the white people who support this system will say, well, the black people need to get a better job. They need to work harder. They need to do this. They need to do that. No, they need the same opportunity that everybody else has. They need to be able to go to school and get a very high quality education so they can come out into the job market. And don't even get me started on how we fund college in this country, because if you think it's hard enough for a black person to make it through high school just for the barriers that they face in the, unequal system we have, don't even get me started on how hard it is for a black person to get into a college and then actually be able to succeed and finish without being $250,000 in debt, which is just another part of it. But it just, we have some problems here, and it is a race problem. At this point, yeah, Darren Wilson is a murdering racist who is probably going to get off like Zimmerman. But thank goodness for the protesters there, because it is a bigger issue past Mike Brown. There is a huge racial problem in this country. I said it in my last video. It's like 1950s with technology. I mean, it's like we're living in the fucking hell. I mean, it's crazy. And, when you walk down the street, think about these anonymous people that are posting on the internet. When you look around, think, that could be them. That could be them. Because, in this day and age, they don't walk down the street with their hood on. They wait till they get home in the safety of their house and, tweet on it. They'll act one way in public and another way when they get to that safety of anonymity. So, it's just a fucking fucked up world that we lived in. But like I've said from the beginning, this is nothing but a cover-up. And just like Trayvon and Kendrick Johnson, I think his last name's Johnson, if you're following that case, Mike Brown, the list goes on and on. None of these people are going to get justice until we actually sit down and have this conversation about race and realize that as a black person in America, it is a very much different road than it is for a white person. I mean, my road hasn't been exactly paved with gold, but it's been a lot easier than my black friend's road. I have a lot of black friends, so I see fucking racism all the time. I see the struggle that is different between the struggle that I have and the struggle that they have. And anybody who wants to say that, racism doesn't exist or it's no different for black people than it is for white people, those people have no black friends. Because if you do, then you've witnessed these things for yourself. You've seen them for yourself. You know exactly what they're talking about because you've seen it, because you're their friend. Anybody who wants to deny these things does not have any black friends. And that's just the way it is. Not saying that makes that person racist. That's just saying that person doesn't know black people. Because if you do know black people, then you know that their struggle is different than our struggle. And that comes from years and years and years of being oppressed and never being allowed to get ahead. Never being allowed to be in positions of power. And that's why it pisses these people off so much that Obama's president. Because how dare a black man get to be president We never authorized that. That was not on the playlist. And it has pissed them off for the last fucking 6 years, and it will for the next 2. And God forbid, I mean, I hope we do, Elizabeth Warren, but if we get a woman president, she's going to have it just as bad off as Barack Obama. And God forbid if we get a black woman president. That is going to have to be a strong-ass woman if we get a black woman president. It's going to have to be, Oprah's going to have to be the vice president, and Iyamla or whatever is going to have to be like a cabinet member of some sort, because that woman will get beat down daily if she, I mean, beat down hard. So if we ever get a black woman president, which would be awesome, but she'd have to be one strong woman. So anyways, that's my Michael Brown or Darren Wilson rant for the day. Good luck, Ferguson.